That you're going to see being rolled out in the real near future from the city and the volunteers.
Thank you, Mayor. So many of you know me. My name is Jim Lund. I am the Deputy Chief of the City of Gulfport Fire Rescue. Here tonight we're going to be discussing hurricane preparedness, registrations, evacuations, hurricane patterns by Bobby Deskins. I do want to say I really appreciate everyone coming out. Big thank you to Mayor Love, Councilmember Thanos, and Councilmember Shaw for showing up, and all the city staff, city manager, and everybody. It's a great team. It's a great event. Like I said, it's really important to listen and ask questions at the end because we'll have that Q&A at the end, okay? So everybody's ready? You got to get Bobby Deskins up here. I mean, he's the man to talk. It comes to fire and stuff, I'm on it, but stage presence, Bobby Deskins, thank you.
Look, I talk on TV in front of a camera, not people, so I hear you. I feel your pain. First of all, thank you for having me. Again, I love coming out here every year. Your city does a tremendous job because there's a lot more people that live here than you guys, but you guys get it started. You go out and you talk to your friends and neighbors about what you heard, that word spreads, and that is helping your community every single year. Number two, thanks for not throwing anything at me after last year, because every year I stand up here and say, well, hope this is a great year, and then, wow, what a year last year. And I get it, because anybody that's been around here for a while that's seen me, I've been here a little over 17 years, and we'll say 3 to 5 foot. 3 to 5 foot, we get 2 to 3 storm surge, right? So last year we were saying 5 to 8 for Helene, and you're like, oh, okay, 5 to 8. It's probably gonna be about 2 to 3, and we got 5 to 8. You would have to be 103 years old or older to see 5 to 8 foot storm surge here in Gulfport. It hasn't happened since 1921, right? So a lot of people said, well, we've never seen anything like that. No, you have. Nobody has, unless you're 104 and you probably don't remember it, right? That was the season. We had 18 named storms. 14 is average. The forecast, and I'll show you a little bit about that coming up a little bit later, is 17. The forecast last year was 18, so they're pretty close. NOAA does a little bit more. They do, this is, by the way, I'm a techie, and so I'm actually controlling this on my phone from my watch. So I'm not ignoring you, I'm just trying to get my watch to do this. Here goes. Yes. All right. There were all the storms, all the names. We have 6 different lists, one for each year, and obviously there's only 6 lists, so every 6 years we repeat the list. And so that was the names from last year. Now, Hurricane Beryl didn't affect us. Upper right, you can see the track, but that was in the Gulf of Mexico. That was a Cat 5. It was the earliest Cat 5 in July. It almost was in June, which we haven't seen. So that would be hard. The water's just getting warmed up. Conditions are just getting right this time of the season. Usually you get into late July, August, and September. In fact, August, September, and October, that's the peak. It's like September 14th is the statistical peak of hurricane season. So Hurricane Milton, obviously we know about Milton. A Cat 5 on October 7th, that was just off the Yucatan Peninsula right there. But that's pushing water our direction. Now, this is the first season since 2019 to have multiple Cat 5s. Beryl, Helene, and Milton, those names will never be used again in our hurricane list. That's right, thank goodness. They get thrown out. Brianna, Holly, and Miguel will replace the names on last year's list, right? So not this year, but in, I guess, 5 years from now, right? We will get that. There's all of the lists. The good one, 2026, or 2025, excuse me, this year, we do have Karen. I don't want to offend anybody, but I can tell you with social media, when Hurricane Karen forms, there's going to be a lot of social media. I said I didn't want to offend you. I said that. But it will be your fault. I just want you to know. All right? There's no Bobby on there. All right. So that was us standing out here this time last year saying, hopefully it's a quiet season. We're going to have named storms, hopefully, but that's what we ended up getting. Helene was 100 miles offshore, and it gave us 5 to 8 foot storm surge. So number one, when we see 18 named storms is what we're forecasting, 17, whatever it is. That doesn't mean anything. It only takes one storm. Where the cone goes, where the center, look, the cone's going to go right up to the west of us. Has nothing to do with the weather. Obviously, you're probably going to have the highest winds right around the center, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that, right? Debbie stayed offshore. Almost 20 inches of rainfall in Sarasota County, right? Not surge, flooding from inland flooding. People that don't live at the coast, they got flooded. That was Debbie. We'll go kind of fast through some of these. By the way, if you have questions, please raise your hand as we go through this. I'd love to answer. And we will do Q&A at the end, but it helps explain things. So that was the actual track. See where the center is here, but look where all the weather is, right? Don't follow that cone for the weather. Follow that cone for where the center is going to go, and know that that cone means the center could be anywhere from here to here. Just the center. Has nothing to do with the weather. But we do know going into a lot of storms that what it will pretty much look like. We don't know for sure, but we know that this is what we call a shear storm. There's wind shear on the west side, which is blowing most of the rain over here. So we knew that we were in for a lot of rain when this was coming through, and a tornado threat. Because the right northeast quadrant, say from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock of a hurricane, that's where you get the best chance for tornadoes. So if it's coming up to our west like that, we get that. The purple here, that's anywhere from 10 to 20 inches of rain. And so it wasn't just us. I mean, look at the low country of South Carolina. They got plenty of it. It's a little bit more of a zoom in. So you can see even Pinellas County was over 10 inches in some spots. But Manatee, Sarasota, they got the flooding rates. That was, where is this? This is Laurel Lakes in Sarasota County. Now, so you get the flooding, you get that kind of thing. That will actually drain off slowly, but then that goes into the rivers. We had a river, it goes northward actually through Pasco Hernando up into Citrus County. It was flooded for months. So folks that live along rivers for inland locations, they have to deal with this for weeks and weeks and sometimes even months as it drains away. That was the storm surge for Debbie. Debbie was a weaker storm. The path was actually kind of similar to Helene, but every storm is different. And that it just always is like that. And so even if you got a similar path, you have to know how strong the storm's going to be because the atmosphere is different around each one of them. Sometimes it allows them to get really big and strong. Sometimes they're sheared like Debbie was. That darker blue is only 1 to 3 foot of surge. That's not a lot. In fact, most areas here would be okay in Gulfport with that. Now my watch is talking. That was Cedar Key. That's where it made landfall. That's storm surge. Cedar Key, real low-lying area as well. And so they did get some surge. It's not that it didn't make surge, it's just that we didn't get it here. These are a bunch of numbers, those are winds, I'll show you that later. But there's Helene, when it was 100, well, it was about 135, 140 mile per hour winds when it was about 100 miles offshore from us. This particular picture was getting a little bit stronger at the time. But that's it. Look at the sun was out in Hernando and Citrus County. And we're starting to see the water come up, just a little bit. But that is pushing water, because it's going counterclockwise, it's pushing water towards the coast. Now, how many were here in 2017? A lot of folks. Okay, remember Irma? Irma was well, before Irma, I cannot remember what it was. We had a devastating hurricane in the Caribbean. And then Irma's coming along. And Irma was a strong one too. Pardon me?
Maria.
No, it was before I. It was I storm. And so anyways, but initially it was coming up the east coast of Florida. So all those people said, forget it. I don't want to deal with this. I'm out. And then the model shifted. It was coming up the west coast of Florida. And all those people left. And then eventually it turned and went right up the spine of the state. 6.5 million people evacuated the state. Now, when we ask people to evacuate, we want you to evacuate because you live right here. You could go a mile up the road and you're not getting water, right? We want you to go tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. Charlie, 04? Anybody here for that one? Charlie was hitting here, right? Oh, it's going to hit here. We're all leaving. We're going to Orlando. What did it do? Turned, went into Punta Gorda, and went right to Orlando. And it was sunny at one point here in Tampa. We didn't have a lot of damage, right? So, and Ian, was it last year, Ian? Or the year before. The year before was Ian. Within 24 hours, it went from hitting here to hitting down Siesta Key. Within 24 hours. So it's important that you have your plan together. When you know now you're going to evacuate because you live in a flood zone here, where are you going? Whose friend's house? Whose family's house? What shelter if you have pets? Does that shelter take pets? Right? You need to figure that out right now because things are going to change quickly. And if you know now and you kind of have a good idea, write the plan down. When a storm's coming next time, you can go right through that plan. You've got your kit over here with stuff. You buy a little bit each time you go to the store and you put in your kit. And now you're not out fighting for plywood. You're not out fighting for all these things at the store. You'll go to the store just because you feel like you have to go, I know some things I got to get. And you're going to get in that rush with everybody else, right? I know how it is. I kind of do that myself. But it really lowers your anxiety levels if you have all this stuff figured out right now. And if that happens, then you're good to go. All right, so that is Helene. There's the track. And you can see where it turned purple. That's where it was the strongest. Major hurricane, which means Cat 3 or higher. And that happened to be right as it was going just past us. Made land, yeah, anytime you see a still picture of me, my mouth is all messed up. My eyes, the whole 9 yards. That's why I move a lot, right? Like the anchors, they put on a lot of makeup. But weather guys, we're just moving around. You can't see what's happening, changes things. That was landfall, 140 mile per hour winds. Tampa still had winds on shore at that point, although the surge at this point was coming down. All right, but that gave, it was like, I say, Helene gave surge to Florida like Oprah. You get surge, you get surge, you get surge, you get surge. It would have been better off if it just made landfall in one spot. Milton, right? Milton came along later and went into about Siesta Key. And Pinellas didn't have anything, right? But Siesta Southward did. Everybody got surge on the coast, on the west coast of Florida from Helene because it didn't make landfall. That's 12 to 16 foot storm surge. We had 5 to 8, we had 5 to 7 here. That's 12 to 16 up at Keaton Beach, up in the Big Bend area where it made landfall. So that can happen here. If instead of going up there making landfall, like Milton went to Siesta, 12-foot surge. Do you imagine 12 foot here? And we had 7, 5 to 7. It can happen. So that's why we have to have all these plans. This is amazing. So when you see us on TV, we're showing you the cone, we're showing you the forecast tracks. That's coming from the Hurricane Center. We don't second guess what those guys are doing. Okay? I will say to you, the models are trending this way or that way, and the Hurricane Center will adjust. But they are very slow to adjust. They don't jump around with each model run. That is the centerline forecast track for Helene. And that is one of the best forecasts you're going to get. Every time for 5, 6, 7 days when that forecast came out, that's every one of their center lines. So they did not go very far from where they started. Excellent forecast there. That's the forecast for intensity. And this one's harder to do. And you can see the black line with see the round black dots? That's where the storm actually was. You can see they were pretty close to that as well. It did get a little bit stronger than they thought, and that's pretty popular. It's really hard with the warmer water to really figure out exactly how strong it's going to get. There's the surge. Naples, 2 to 4, 3 to 5. Charlotte Harbor, you see we're in the orange there, 5 to 7. So everybody got surge. It would have been much better if it just had made landfall in one location. There's all the surge numbers. You can see all the 6s and 7s here in our neck of the woods, and then some 13s way up there in the Big Bend. So storm surge, and the reason I started to bring it up with Irma. Irma goes by, and it blew the winds out. If you're in Fort Myers, the storm's going like this, it's inland, the wind's blowing like this, so it's literally blowing the water out, which, what we were saying, Justin, Milton took the volleyball courts, right? So we had a negative surge in Fort Myers for that. So then Ian comes along. You got to evacuate. You got a large surge come. We're fine. We were fine when Irma came by. That's to me, they clearly did not understand what storm surge is or how it's made. Storm surge is the wind blowing the water. Look at the upper left at A. It's not a high tide. It's literally the wind of the hurricane pushing the water. And it's really shallow out here compared to the East Coast. So the East Coast doesn't get storm surge like we do. They get storm surge, don't get me wrong, but we can get it much worse here, not only because we're very shallow, and I showed you that storm surge all the way up the West Coast. The whole West Coast is like that, right? But also because Tampa Bay, inside the bay, could be even worse. If you've got winds blowing from the southeast to the northeast, and they're going right across the mouth of the bay, right across the skyway and up towards downtown Tampa, they're pushing water up there. They'll get 10, 15 feet of water in downtown Tampa. There's nowhere else for it to go. The northern part of the bay up towards Oldsmar, really bad surge because of that. So storm surge, what we had here for Helene was literally the wind pushing the water up, as you can see all the way through D there. And it's important, like, you know, people just, you know, that really got to me because I know the Mets down there. I know everybody is talking about storm surge for Ian, and for people to say that they were fine during Irma, so they'll be fine during Ian, I mean, they just clearly did not understand it, and that's deadly. The storm surge deaths that we had for Helene, of all the deaths from Helene that were storm surge, every one of them was here in Tampa Bay. Every one of them. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the number one, they were in an area they shouldn't be. You have to get out. And this is just kind of a picture of it showing how it blows it up above high tide. It's not only above high tide, but it's also waves on top of whatever that level is. And that's really destructive. This is one of my favorite graphics right here. So you see the one, that's where the center is, or is going to be. The yellow, that's tropical storm force winds, around 40 to 60 mile per hour winds, right? That shows you where we expect the weather to be. Look where the center, look how far it is out there. And we're already getting 40 mile per hour winds. And then these are updated with each storm that goes by, whether it's coming by us or anywhere. And so you can actually look at that and find out where that weather is going to be. So it's really important not to focus on where that center is going, because you can see all the wind that's associated with it. Debbie was a smaller storm. Helene was a bigger storm, and it had higher winds. So it was literally blowing what we call a fetch. You blow amount of wind over a fetch of water, a surface area of water. The bigger that is, the more wind there is, the more surge you're going to get. And that's exactly what happened in this case. These are winds. You know, the highest was offshore. It's crazy because we did have some good winds here, but nothing major. Milton was more of our windstorm than anything else. And those are some of the numbers there. I'll skip that. There's the rainfall. That's what happened up in North Carolina. Remember that? So Helene did that in North Carolina. That was rainfall for them. And you see that area up there in some of the mountainous there, 25, 30 inches of rain up there in the mountains. And it's not like Florida, we're flat. 20 inches of rainfall in a V, right, which is the valley. The valley's gone. It just all funnels down into it. And that's what happened with them. That's Asheville. That's the French Broad River in Asheville. And that's what's left of Chimney Rock. That was a town up the river that is now there. So the dark, I'll just go ahead and say it right now because I think I zoomed in on this. I think I did. Those areas in the blue, that's a once in 1,000 year occurrence. So that weather event only happens once every 1,000 years on average. It was rare. It was very rare. What happens, number one, Helene was moving pretty quickly when it was coming in. So it takes longer time. It goes further in as it gets weaker and weaker. Slower storms, they'll get to the coast, they fall apart when they go over land. All storms fall apart when they go over land. But this one was moving so quick, it didn't weaken as quickly. All right? Number two, climate change. We're measuring it. It's not as bad as some studies that you see, but we're measuring it. And a warmer atmosphere holds more moisture. About on 10, 15% more. Hurricane Charlie, remember Charlie went over the Houston area and that was crazy. Like, well, yeah, but you park any hurricane over a city for 4 days and you're gonna get crazy rainfall, right? But when you factor in climate change, you could say 10 to 15% extra rainfall. They got 60 inches of rainfall. So you're talking about, 10 of that was somewhere else, right? That was extra moisture. You do not see that. Our flooding here, our storm surge was once in 100 years. Or at least that's the last time that we saw it. That was once in 1,000 years. So just devastating. And you can see all of the power outages. And when I see this map, that shows me how much wind there was with it. And that means that was a strong hurricane, and it stayed relatively strong as it went on shore. And you think about all the plans you get, all the prep that we talk about, and most of it's when the power goes out. Like, what do you do? Right? My power went out for 8 days. My neighborhood didn't lose power at all. The pond across the street went down the street and flooded 4 fuses. And of course, they weren't coming in to fix our neighborhood because nothing was wrong. So they did all the big neighborhoods that were out and kept on going across the county, and then came back to me 8 days. And in that time, I had to figure out, wait a minute, if I put the generator, if I run an extension cord to this and run an extension cord to that. So it took me 3 or 4 days really to get everything kind of plugged in, because I just sat around the house like, oh, wait a minute. And I wasn't even there, I was working, but you know. There are the deaths, 34 deaths from Helene in the state of Florida. The direct deaths were 18, and most of those were the storm surge. So just get out of the way, right? Have that plan to go somewhere. Tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. Turn around, don't drown, right? And we used to have Larry Gisbert. The old timers in here will remember Larry Gisbert. He ran Hillsborough County, and he would just tell people, if you're not going to leave, I need you to get a Sharpie. You got a Sharpie? I need you to write your social security number on your left arm, so we can identify the body afterwards. Speed it up. He was like a walrus, had a walrus mustache. All right, there's Milton. Milton 165, look at that thing. That was just a beeline for Siesta Key. Again, who got the surge? I'll show you that, but it wasn't us, right? We got a negative surge. Landfall at Cat 3 with 120 mile per hour winds. It was actually a pretty good shaped storm as it made landfall. Milton, top 5 strongest hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin. 897 millibars. Usually the lower that pressure, the faster, the atmosphere is trying to balance itself out. When you got a really low pressure here, those winds go faster and faster towards the center. And that's what hurricanes are. They're lower pressure in the middle, wind going to the center and try and balance it out, and they just go faster. So almost record breaking as far as that goes. So this is the Hurricane Center forecast track. You see a couple outliers there to the north, but near the Yucatan, right in here. But look where it made landfall. They were really close from the get-go, right? So I say this and I show this now, and I don't want people to think the next storm that's coming in anybody's direction that it's definitely going to make landfall there because the Hurricane Center has been so good. But they did really well with these particular storms. I've never seen a 5 to 8 foot storm surge forecast that we had last year. I've never seen it come that quick and stay that way, right? I thought there'd be a little bit of adjustment, and then the models could come in and look at the storms here. It's getting bigger and bigger. I'm like, yeah, it was almost easier because it wasn't going to make landfall. We knew it was going to stay offshore, and we knew it was about what size and strength it was going to be, and that made it almost easier for us to determine that. That's a satellite picture of the winds. It's actually radar of the winds. And so at first we don't get a lot of wind, but on the backside, as it's going north, you will get a lot of wind. That happened with Irma. We had like 60 mile per hour winds, 60, 70s with Irma. It went by, the center went by to the north, and we got northwest winds in Pinellas County about almost 100 miles per hour. A bunch of other numbers here. Yeah, there's the trop. We all know that story. Or wherever we're at in that story. We have a camera that looked right on it. We have to evacuate. We're at CBS Gandy Boulevard, Gandy Bridge, and we're right on the water. So anytime we have 5 foot storm surge in the forecast, I tell our crew, I'm like, 3 to 5 foot, we probably got to leave. Because we can't have cars there in the parking lot. The building's probably okay at 9 foot surge, but you can't have people inside the building surrounded by water on the outside. Right, yeah, she can tell you that. Wink, you heard what happened with Wink, yeah. Yeah, it's television station Fort Myers. You know, they're doing what I do, like, hey, please evacuate if you're asked to do so. They were in level 1, they didn't evacuate. They had to call 911 at 3 in the morning to come get the fire department to come in the middle of the hurricane to get them out of there because they were taking in water. So it's really important to have that plan. tornadoes, at least 46. I don't know if you remember that, because that was, it's one of the largest outbreaks in state history. And these were legit tornadoes. You see tornadoes on TV, on the Weather Channel, Discovery Channel, all the chasers. We don't tend to get that strong of a tornado here. I think it's 90% of our tornadoes are EF1s or less. They go EF0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the highest. We had some EF3s, and we started getting these pictures, and that's a good tornado. They don't normally even look like that, but that one right there, you can see the wall cloud that's dropped out of the main cloud, and then you see the tornado right there in the center of that. We knew on radar that the rotation looked really good. We're like, man, these look legit. And then you get pictures like that, and it's like, wow. So then you start taking seriously every tornado warning you see out there. Look at the difference in surge from Milton to Helene. And in fact, we had 1 to 2 at least initially, but generally we had about a negative 2.1, 2.3 surge for Tampa. Irma, we had like a negative 4-foot surge. Now you may remember the manatee that was sitting on the bay, right? And then people walking out on the bay. It doesn't come in super quick, so everybody was okay, but probably tell people not to do it, but I would do it. I hate to say that, I would do it. And there were some of the surge numbers, nothing really for Tampa Bay, 5 to 7, almost 8 feet down south. That was Minnesota Key. And I'm not sure about that one, but what we really learned is how electric vehicles handle saltwater. Here's a Nest camera. This shows this boat was on top of it. I don't think I have it. So one of the hurricanes, a friend of mine from college actually, Mark Suddeth, he does hurricane track. He goes and puts these cameras up where the surge is going to be, and so he can show time lapses of it. And there's this place up in Crystal River somewhere. And there's like a restaurant on the water. There's a road that runs right along the water and a little sidewalk, and then there's the water. Well, everybody, you can see on the time lapse, everybody's gone. And all of a sudden, this lady pulls up this car, this Cadillac, and parks it right there, and gets out and leaves. And of course, it gets washed, it's gone, right? And I'm like, that's insurance fraud right there, right? That's pretty clear what that is. The story that got back to me was, that was her husband's Cadillac, and he had done something. And she, so I'm up here preaching safety and preparedness, and she's like, oh, here it comes, Earl, I got it. You just never know, never know. Those are some of the surge from Milton. Again, most of that was down south, and you can see where it went in. That's how the winds are blowing, and that's what blows surge. So it's really important to know. I mean, look, if we're going to tell you what we're expecting, we're not just saying it. We don't say it to get you to leave or anything like that. It's all done with lots of computers, lots of forecast models, trying to figure out exactly what it's going to be. Look at the rain. That's where all the rain was, on the north side. And so that purple is from 10 to 17 inches, essentially. Okay, we're getting into what we're expecting for this year. All right, here we go. I hate these numbers. I hate these numbers because it doesn't really mean that much to you. All right, so the average number of named storms, NS, is what we tend to get over the last, I think that's 10 years or it's a 30 year. It's getting higher. It's getting higher, let's put it that way. It used to be 12, now it's up to 14. But that's the average. Of those 14, 7 become hurricanes. And of those 7, 3 become Cat 3 or higher, which means 111 mile per hour winds or higher. We call those major hurricanes. Okay, so that's the average. Colorado State's calling for 17 this year. Last year at this time they called for 18. We saw 18. See the 2024 list on the right there. 18, 11, and 5 is what we saw last year. There's an outfit out of Sarasota. They're going 17, 10, and 5. But look at those bottom line here, 4, 5, and 5. Those are major hurricanes. That's warmer than normal water because that's like gasoline for the fire, right? We look at a bunch of different things, but that water that's out there needs to be 80 degrees. Hurricane season, it's 80 degrees. But it's 90, 92, 93 degrees, right? But anything over 80 is what it needs. That's why we don't have hurricane season in the wintertime, right? It's just not as warm. Hurricane season, the hurricanes is literally Mother Nature's way of taking all that heat that's hitting the equator and just north of the equator, bubbling it up and dispersing it to the north to kind of balance things out. That's what it's doing. And we just happen to be in the way, right? So when you see these numbers, number one, let's go back to the forecast last year was very close to those numbers. Let's just assume that was it. If I told you today that there's going to be 17 named storms, do you think I know where they're going to hit? No. I could not have told you that we were going to get 3 storms here last year. I couldn't have told you. Now, we can look at the high pressures out over the Atlantic. If they're centered further to the west towards Bermuda, we call them Bermuda highs, that would push more of the storms into the Gulf, and we'd have to watch for it more. If it was centered further to the east, that would allow them to recurve and come up the east coast of the United States more. This year, some of the modeling says that that high may be centered a little further to the east. So maybe it opens up the door for the east coast of Florida, for the Carolinas to have to deal with more storms than us. That high doesn't just sit there. It kind of drifts back and forth throughout the season, and it only matters where it is when the storm's coming towards us. And it's not just sitting there, the storm's here, and you're like, oh, we're good, but then it happens to back this way as the storm's coming up. So there's a lot that we can look at now and give you ideas, but the devil's in the details, and just like Hurricane Ian was going to hit here last year or 2 years ago, and then within 24 hours it went somewhere else, that can happen every single year. So when you see 17, 17, and 18, that just means I'm going to be busy, and you should have your plan ready to go. But who was here? Who remembers 1992? You know how many named storms we had in 1992? You want to guess? Anyone? 12. I think 12 was maybe 10 was 11 was the average. 7. We had 7 named storms in 1992. That was it. And the first one didn't even occur until August. But it was Hurricane Andrew. It changed the building codes in Florida. So that's why I always say this, it only takes one. You get prepared. I mean, how the heck were we going to know there was going to be 2 more after Devin? Well, another one 2 weeks after Helene. That was the crazy thing, right? We've had enough. So there's the list. Karen will be fine. It's not going anywhere. It'll be fine. There is, by the way, a pronunciation guide. So if you think we're saying it wrong, we say however the Weather Service, it's actually the World Meteorological Organization. They come up with these lists. And then we go on the Hurricane Center site and you can see the pronunciation guide that's there. But we'll see how far we get this year. One of the things we look at, El Nino, La Nina. El Nino, we have more wind shear over the Atlantic. So our hurricane clouds are starting to grow up, but then it runs into this wind shear, and it literally blows the tops off. Hurricane can't get very strong. More wind shear equals less hurricanes. That's El Nino. See the ASO right here? August, September, October. That's the core of the season. We want that red line to be really tall. It's not. All right? But the blue line's the opposite. We don't want the blue line there. If the blue line was really tall, that would say there's not going to be a lot of wind shear, and we could make more storms. But we're actually going to be in the middle there, which is a neutral. And so because of that, it's not that much different from last year. We were more in a La Nina last year, so we didn't have as much wind shear. Right now the wind shear is actually pretty high, especially over the Caribbean, and it's been fluctuating over the Gulf of Mexico, and it usually is this time of the year. We're going to get a bunch of Saharan dust later this week and into the weekend. I see people say the sunsets are more vibrant. They're actually more muted to me because it's just like a hazy sunset. You're going to notice that in the next several days. These are just forecast models they're basically showing the same thing, right? That little black line in the middle, the bold one, you want to be north or south of there, right? We want to be south of there to be an El Nino, and it's kind of close. Or actually, you want to be north of there for El Nino, and it's looking like it's kind of in between neutral and La Nina. It does look a little bit better than last year, let's put it that way. Another thing, this is the area of water. You see the reds here? That's South America, that white right there. And then the reds coming off of that. We're looking at this water out here along the equator. That's what El Nino and La Nina is. It's that temperature of that water. Is it warmer than average? Is it cooler than average? Once that happens, it changes the way the wind goes over top of that area. That changes the weather in the Western Pacific. That's El Nino and La Nina. It's this whole cycle. It's not just the water temperature, but it's the wind called Hadley cells that we have to show. But that is all shifting weather patterns. You know, the highs and lows in the wintertime, they bring us nice weather or rain. During the wintertime with La Nina, they're higher. The storm track goes higher. We stay warmer and drier here in Florida. If we had an El Nino, because of all of this water temperatures happening out here, it shifts those jet streams that go over the United States. During El Nino, they're further to the south, which brings storms right across the southern U.S. and Florida. So it affects our weather year-round, but it really gives us more of a clue of what we could expect for hurricane season. So this is the water temperature anomaly, which means how much warmer or cooler is it than what it normally is at this time. And this is a little bit older, but good news is this water has been running cooler than average. And in fact, it's cooler than what even that shows right now, which is really good. However, we don't start looking for storms out here until maybe late July, but usually August and September and part of October. Now, this Caribbean water has been running warmer, but recently, I looked at it today, I was like, wow, I was kind of shocked. It's cooler than normal. It'll change, it'll all change, but that is good signs for right now. The Gulf, above average. So a lot of you have been here long enough to know, you remember you used to set your watch to when those afternoon storms were coming. And the last 5 to 10 years, it's not like that as much. That is either a west wind off of the water or a southeast wind coming in from over land. The southeast wind that blows towards our beaches, that brings you those 4 o'clock showers. A west wind gives you a small chance in the morning that everything like you've seen the last week and a half, 2 weeks, everything's going inland, right? They're getting all the rain. That's where those high pressures are sitting out there, the Bermuda High, wherever that's sitting. But that also affects our water temperature. You're not getting those afternoon storms. The rain that we get at 4 o'clock cools us, right? We want just clouds for shade because we're so picky at this point. We want anything. Then we get some rain, and it does cool the air down after the storm goes by. If that rain was moving from east to west and it got out into the Gulf of Mexico, it will cool that water temperature. It's about 86 degrees now, so that's definitely a little bit old. Water temp's now 86 at Clearwater. That'll cool a touch if we finally start getting more rain, but not a whole lot because it should be about 82, 83 this time of the year. So it's not that much above, but it is a little bit above. All right, getting into question time. Most of you stayed awake, I appreciate that. Things to do. So this is a standard thing that I do in all of my talks, but the silver lining of what just happened, we've been through this now, right? What did you learn last year that you didn't know that you needed? That's the key. And because now we've been hit, not only just a direct hit, but we hit multiple times, there's still a lot of people moving to Florida, right? I mean, COVID hit, we were on lockdown for 2 months, and then we won 2 Stanley Cups and a Super Bowl, and we had boat parades for all of it, and we were having a good old time, and everybody said, forget it, I'm going to Florida. So our population swelled, and they came from places where they didn't have hurricanes, right? And so they're not used to it, and then all of a sudden we get 3 of them, right? So that was a situation where we've been trying to get people prepared, but there was a lot of people that just didn't know. And a lot of people like us have been here for a long time, but haven't had to deal with this stuff. So all of this planning and prep and the list that you will go down, we still need to do all that. In fact, we need to do more of it now, right? But now you're going to know, just like the mayor said, it was a great idea. He said, just watering down your plants afterwards, get rid of that salt water, right? All of those little tips and tricks. When you gut it out from here down, do you put drywall back or do you put something that can be rinsed off? Little things like that, because it may happen again. You kind of have to plan that it will. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it's another 150 years, right? But it might happen again. So thank you everybody for having me. If you got questions, we can certainly do that. I'll give it over to Justin.
We are recording tonight's session, so if there are any questions for Mr. Deskins, also the Public Works Department is here, Kendricks Anderson, Gulfport Fire and Rescue. Our planners are here. Tim, if you could get Mark to address any permitting questions. We're going to open the floor. The most important thing from the city side, ahead of storm season. Our communication tool is the Constant Contact newsletter tool that we send every Monday. See me after if you need help registering for that. But that's also the network we send out communications from the city about sandbag distribution. We also piggyback on the county when evacuation orders are called, and we post that on the Hurricane Center page on the city's website at mygulfport.us. So with that, if there are questions for the subject matter experts, please just raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you. Tim Reynolds is helping as well with the second mic.
Yeah, he has a microphone, actually.
Okay.
Speak up and we'll answer it.
All right, I really don't know anything about this, and I'm so appreciative of your knowledge. I live across the street.
Oh, good,
And
good.
I live on a ridge, so I was safe. But here we are, 2025. Can't we add like coolant to the oceans? Can't we put a little ice in there or something to get
You know,
it?
I have a chemtrail presentation that I had to make. I didn't want to do it, but I got in there to do it. It's the scale is so hard to do. This because it's so big. There was the thing, oh, we'll just blow it up. I heard something like that. Put a nuclear bomb from it, like, which is crazy to think about. But if you had, I may sound crazy, but if a hurricane moves from warm water to cool water, it'll weaken quickly. Maybe not completely, but it'll weaken quickly. If you were to literally, if it was out in the ocean and you dropped the bomb in front of the storm, it would cause what's called upwelling. And cooler water from the bottom would come to the top, and it would be there for several days. And then the storm would move over. I mean, technically, it's possible. But like, to me, that's the only thing, and you'd have to do that right around the center, which is 10 miles, 20 miles, whatever it is. But the scale is so big. Like the chemtrail stuff, I'm like, no, that's Flight 722 from Miami to Houston, and it's 40,000 feet up. It doesn't have enough, it couldn't carry the weight of whatever that stuff is you think they're spraying to hurt you, and then to fall and to get to you. Just some ice cubes. That would be nice. Yeah. It's a great question, and they're looking into it. They do.
Thank you so much for protecting us.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Just telling lies about the weather on TV.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm just curious with the potential cuts to funding for NOAA and the Hurricane Center. How confident are you feeling in your ability to have access to information to get to us, to keep us updated, and yourself feeling confident in your position?
At this point, fine, totally confident. There was definitely touch and go, what services were going to get turned off, and then some did, it got turned back on. Nothing that was vital that I saw was turned off. A lot of it was some behind the scenes, a lot of statistical stuff, which we do use sometimes. But even I think most of that has survived those cuts at this point. So kind of crossing our fingers and hoping it stays that way. But look, there's going to be cutbacks. They're not doing all of the balloon launches that they used to do. And that is what goes into all those forecasts. Everybody wants to see the spaghetti plots, where are all those squiggly lines, and then you pick the one that comes to your house, and you're like, oh, I got a bad feeling about that one, right? That is based off of computer models. And I say it's kind of like crap in, crap out. Like, you have to have good data going into it, and the more data you have going into it, actual data, what is the temperature? What does that atmosphere look like on that balloon launch? That's not a guess by a model, that is what it is. Then the models can take that and run with it. So the more of that we have, the better. Some of that they've cut back, but it's up in like the Northwest more than anything else. And that, for tropical season, it doesn't affect us as much. I would like to see that not happen, but it's not terrible for us.
Hi, I'm her next door neighbor, and we look after her house when she's gone in the summer. One of the things that we were very thankful for last year were all the sandbags we got, and many of which we kept. Are those sandbags that we've kept still good for this season? That's one of the questions, a practical question I had, because we still have a big stack of them.
Oh, absolutely. They're still in good shape. I talk less, but they're still in good shape. We ask you to hold on to them. As long as they're not fraying or broken, the plastic. If you do happen to need more, we are doing a sandbag event on June 14th at the Neighborhood Center from 8 to 2 p.m. We'll have staff there to help assist load and fill up the bags. But we ask just hold on to them, and if you end up needing to get rid of it, just spread it across the yard, in the backyard. Try not to throw it in your trash can, because our staff, it's a little too heavy to pick up. But yeah, they're great, and if you happen to have any questions as far as needing more sandbags, please call the Public Works Department, and we'll do the best we can to get you that information, so.
And do people use plastic? I see a lot of people that don't, but you put plastic up against the door, and then you put the sandbags, and that's what holds the water out.
And I also want to mention they have water dams. For those of us who are getting older and can't lift sandbags anymore, it's a tube of water that you can refill. You put your plastic down, you put your dam across there, you fill it with water. After the storm, you empty it, fold it up, put it away till next year. Much easier to deal with, and you can buy them online.
Yes, yeah, we utilize those. My previous job at City of Largo, we bought these tiger dams, and you fill them up with water, you put them along the beach line to help prevent flooding. So they're a pain to get rid of afterwards, but yeah, they work really well.
What do you think about the dam doors, the flood dam doors that they're encouraging us to buy in town shores, and when we live on the first floor? Do you know what I'm talking about? They're almost $1,000 a piece.
Yeah, we actually did purchase some for our lift stations, and they have been effective.
Okay.
Now, how much they cost to the homeowner compared to what the city rate is, I can't tell, but they have been proven to be effective for our use in public works.
Okay, I heard from someone that they do not take saltwater wells, so that the first year that you have them, they work, and then the inside mechanisms get, screwed up.
Yeah, I don't know how the material that they utilize, I don't know if it's a polymer or it was metal, but I couldn't speak on that.
Okay.
Saltwater is very corrosive, so that would be a hard thing to answer.
There was a case on 27th Avenue that we ran out in the community for no damage to the structure case. There was a 3-inch water line on above the finished floor level, but there was no water in the house because there was a hydro barrier. It was like an inflatable raft type mechanism that was on each entry to the house, and that's essentially what saved the no damage case.
If you're in a condo with that thing, I mean, you can block your door, but if your neighbor doesn't, it's going to go through the drywall eventually over the years.
Hey guys, I was just wondering, the sand, does it have salt in it?
No, this is masonry sand.
Okay.
That's from a quarry on the east coast of Florida.
Okay, good. Because I don't want to put salt in my yard.
Now, if you're reusing them, it will have salt from the salt water that's got in there.
If the salt water reached the bags
Correct.
the previous time. Okay, thank you.
I have a question about communication. This storm reminded me of Hurricane Elena in 1985. And what happened, there was a gasoline shortage at that time. They shut down Port Tampa just like they did during the last storm. Those of us that were fortunate enough to have generators, we had a hard time locating fuel. I waited 4 hours in a station just north of Largo, and of course we'd see the tank truck come in, and we'd sit in line for another hour and another tank truck come in. I found it was very hard to identify who had active fuel and why we didn't, get better communication on that. Have you heard anything about people complaining about that?
Complaints, yes. Solutions, no. I know what you're talking about. I mean, they were even saying it on the radio, like so-and-so's got gas. I know we did it at Channel 10. We would say which stations have gas, and we go to commercial break, and I'm like, well, by the time I hear that, and I go down, now we've told everybody on TV, and a lot of times people would get there and they were already out of gas. The key is having it ahead of time. Just,
how much did you store ahead of time?
yeah.
We were up for 8 days.
Yeah.
So obviously, we went through quite a bit.
So we got lucky because, and here's the other side about the planning. I was out for 8 days. I had probably 6 or 7 gallons, or more than that. But it was like 2 a day, or something like that. I was going through. But then my friends, see, they didn't lose power, and so people that had gotten gas ahead of time, they had it. We didn't have to go anywhere. They say, "Oh, we don't need it here. You take it." You know what I mean? But if you're hitting a hard area like this where everybody needs it, then you're starting to ration.
I found on 49th Street near Bryan Dairy, that east and west to get from the Port of Tampa, those gas stations, especially that Circle K, 49th and Bryan Dairy, that's where I filled up twice.
One thing that bank said is when they shut down the power in different areas as they're restoring, you might go all the way out of your way and you don't get fuel when you get there. So that's the importance of evacuating to a safe place that will have it for you.
And I did have to wait in line too for the truck to arrive.
And you know, I would top off before the storm, anytime I saw anything, you know, just top off. Yeah.
And that's one of our talking points too in our city staff meetings is all the vehicles fill up prior to the storm arriving.
So who has a generator? Who knows how to run? Well, you might probably all know how to run it now. But did you know last year? You know, and what's going to happen next year or next time is if you left that gas in there, it's going to flood it. That gas is going to turn bad.
We just dealt with this. We bought it around this time last year, and by the time the storms came, the generator wouldn't start because the gas had gotten old.
So you can put a solution. We want to get it all out of there, but there is a solution you can put in there that helps.
Or if you keep the tank full, they say, with the solution, and you start it every week or two, let it run, keep refilling it, which is kind of costly.
Every week or two, drive. Yeah. You got PTSD every time you turn it on. I'll spare myself that. I'll have a flooded one next time. But that, you know, that's the thing. Know how to work them, right? Because you'll see these people in line at Home Depot and Lowe's, right? Hopefully they know how to work them. And then some people are afraid it's going to get stolen, so they put them right by the house. They put them in the garage, and now you got carbon monoxide issues, right? And it happens every incident. So, you know, hopefully it's happening less and less. You would know about
under
that.
windows and all that where you think it's safe,
Yeah.
it's not. It'll get in there. Away from the house. 10 feet is the best. 10 feet is the best. But exhaust pointing out.
Not those neighbors, the other neighbors.
Right, yeah. There you go. The best to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. They're the ones who develop it. They're the ones who know the CFMs and everything about the generator. So follow their recommendations on it.
I just wanted to suggest it is more expensive, but it's something that people might want to start saving up for our solar generators, where then you're not reliant on fossil fuels and trying to access them. You know, you've got the power through sun, and it doesn't make all the noise for your neighbors. You're not emitting exhaust, you know, into the area, and you're not consuming fossil fuels, which is playing a part in creating these stronger hurricanes in the first place. So they are more expensive, but they're out there and they're a much more resilient, reliable option than something powered by fossil fuels.
And you can add solar panels to it, larger solar panels to get more energy quicker.
Thank you. So my question is probably more for the city. Like, we can do all we can do to protect our homes, but what if we have neighbors who are putting our homes at risk because of what they're doing in their yards? What do we do about that?
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by?
So I have a neighbor, he's on the corner, so the far back of his yard is actually 5 feet outside my bedroom window.
Okay.
And I complained last year because he's storing all kinds of rotten old wood with nails in it. And the city said they can't do anything about it because it's in the backyard where nobody can see it. But they did talk to him, and they did allow him to come out and look at the debris that he has storing up. Yeah. And the city said that it was acceptable. So here it is a year later. He still has all this rotten wood with nails, and he didn't tie it up this year. He goes away, he's a snowbird, and it's 5 feet outside my bedroom window, putting my house at risk because he's irresponsible. It's rotten old wood he hasn't used all year. He's doing wood projects in his yard and buying new wood. So why is he hoarding all this old wood with rotten nails and paint cans and everything else, putting my house at risk? What can I do about that?
Well, that's a really hard one, honestly, as the fire marshal end of it, being a residential property. If they're not encroaching on any kind of lands or doing anything that's hazardous to the air, I know the stuff on the ground is hazardous. It's really kind of hard to tell somebody what they can and can't do on their property in that state. I don't know, Mark, if you can answer any of that. But.
So an option is, like I said, you contact the code enforcement officer. They can't come behind their backyard. and they can make suggestions, especially if the fences come down to hurricanes, they will be able to get that, but otherwise you can contact the Pinellas County as well, as especially if it's moldy and it's toxic to the air, you can talk to Pinellas County Air Quality Control, and they potentially may be able to do something about it.
And I will put some to that. You can always call me. Like, I am the deputy chief, but also covers the fire marshal. I don't mind going out and talking to somebody. I can't make any promises, but I'd be more than happy to mention that items might be unsafe, or, you know, hey, can you just wait to clean it up or make it secure for anything like that. All right, but I'm more than happy to do what I can to help, but I couldn't make any promises.
He's already been cited and fined by the fire department for illegal burns. So he's on your radar.
And we're a grassroots type community too, so neighbors help neighbors, and I think to bridge that gap, we had a meeting just the other day with Public Works and volunteer organizations to put together some type of event where somebody could bring material outside of a simple call Public Works and do a special pickup to dispose of that debris type material. So I think to bridge the gap, be looking for that via the newsletter, special events.
I didn't understand what you said.
As a grassroots type community, neighbors help neighbors, maybe bridging that gap where there's communication to the community that, you know, hey, maybe he just needs some help in order to dispose of it. You know, I think, you know, opening up those lines of communication are vital to, you know, have that empathy to see, you know, how we all can help.
So to address that, one of the things that I want to try and do is get a system of people, if we haven't decided what to call it, but like ambassadors for their neighborhood, and that person would know all the phone numbers and emails for everybody in their area and work with them. If somebody like that is not willing to do it, maybe just kind of peer pressure from their neighbors or offering to help take that out and like you say, do a special pickup with it or something. And that's where you can help each other if it's during a storm, but also keeping your storm drains clean, to keep an eye on that and let Public Works know if they need it. You could do tool exchanges, you could help each other. If somebody has to go in the hospital, somebody needs to feed their dog. You know, it's just a way for neighbors to really get to know their immediate neighbors, and then hopefully, you know, eliminate some of the friction that people have. You know, like somebody may seem like they're being really stubborn about something, but maybe if you really get to know them and see what's going on really, maybe they just need help and aren't willing to admit it or something. I don't know. But the idea is to make people get to know everybody in their area and, you know, be there for each other when you need it. And for also using it for Crime Watch. So I'm working with Jim Wright on that too.
I moved here last year from Colorado, and it's amazing to me
your fault.
how few ditches we have, how there's no drainage system really set up in Gulfport. Like, I live up by, I live up by the park, and the water just, I mean, even in a rain, the water is on the street all the time. I mean, and I know this is older than where I lived in Colorado, but I mean, what can be done? What's the city gonna do for sewer, or, you know, to take care of the water and improve the drainage and everything?
Good question. So we actually do have quite a bit of storm pipe. We have 113,000 linear feet of storm pipe. It's just some areas have more than others. Gulfport is such a low-lying area. You can only put so much pipe in to move water because we have a lot of slope. To find a solution to this problem with us being so close to the bay, we are currently working on a watershed master plan. It's going to be presented at the end of this year. So our first stage is we're to identify our assets, make sure we know where our pipes are, who owns what, between the county and city of St. Petersburg. At the end of the year, they're going to offer modeling, and as far as hydrology, as far as the area, what options we may have to improve drainage. But yeah, we do have drainage. It's just unfortunately where we're located at, as close to the bay we are, you know, all it takes is some high tide, and then all of a sudden you can't get the water to drain the pipe. It's not a unique situation, unfortunately. I'm born and raised in Clearwater, you know, and so we had the same issue in that city where I worked at. But we are trying to find a solution to it. And we hope to have some answers at the end of this year with the watershed master plan.
One of the things is just so flat here. And then the water drains, and then in all places like short acres, you hear a lot about that on TV, but high tide and it rains, there's nowhere for the water to go, literally. Yeah, it's tough. And then the ground underneath this is limestone. It's real porous, fills with water very easily, drains with water. So if that water's full down there, it's just really no place to go. Good question.
Colorado, we had little drainage things, right off the sidewalks and things.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
none here, but it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to do. But, there's nothing here like that.
Right.
City Council also hosted a resiliency workshop May 22nd. It's on demand on the city's website, mygulfport.us. Really good information, good presentations. I would recommend going to that page and reviewing that meeting. Is there a hand up over here? We'll go to Ms. Atkins in the back here.
Since we had unprecedented flooding and many homes took water over the electrical outlet, and there's been a lot of rumor, could we get some safety tips about how to deal with that, the risk of electrical fires? I was home, we killed our power, of course, whole neighborhood is dark, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I look out and across the street is lit up like a Christmas tree. And I know that they took water, over the outlets too. My next door neighbor, the panel was submerged. And people were just flipping things back on, and we heard, oh, don't turn your hot water heater back on. It took on hot water. So I think people just didn't know how to be safe. And if we could get some information on that, what to do beforehand and after, like don't turn it on until this happens.
So we do put out some, I've given it to Justin, he puts it out through the city website, the alert system. But you're exactly right. Turn the breakers off in your house.
Before you evacuate.
Yeah, before you evacuate. The problem with that is some don't either know or they don't see the education.
They don't believe they're going to flood, so they just leave.
We do try in emergency services as we can get out there. Usually I'm out there, you'll see me. And we try to identify that as it's happening, and we get with Duke Energy to shut down those grids. So through the night, it wasn't that we were losing power, we actually had to shut down the grids because of the danger of that, of electrocuting people or burning down homes. But there is no right answer on that other than shutting the power off. That's the only thing you can do. When the water recedes, get the electrician out to turn on what is safe or what hasn't been, covered with salt water.
It's amazing to see a flooded area and the house is burning. Right? And that just doesn't make any sense, but that's exactly what happens. And then I was talking to an electrician the other day, he was talking about there's like a cinching thing. So your breakers or your outlets here and the wires down here. He worked for a church, and the church wanted them all, like 100 some of them replaced. Because they were assuming that the water gets into any of those places, it'll cinch up inside the thing, and you don't know how far up it went. And they just wanted to be safe than sorry, and they replaced them all.
And it could be years down the road. It's corrosive part of it. Zach gets it. Salt water is very productive.
Back here, Jim.
Yeah, I was one of the people last year that evacuated.
Okay.
Okay, I wound up at Gibbs High School. They were very good to us, I want to say that. But there was a woman there who smuggled in her pet. We all knew about the pet. We all loved the pet. Somebody told the authorities and they threw her out, and of course the pet went with her. And that was a couple of days before we were all allowed to go home. And I'm wondering now, since this year, I have my own pet. I know there are people, and I might be one of them, I will stay wherever I have to stay if my cat is not allowed somewhere. I can bring them supplies and that sort of stuff and take care of my cat, but I'm not going to leave without my pet. Do you know anything about pet shelters or anything that's going to be set up for that?
We do, not we don't, the county does set up pet shelters.
Specific pet shelters.
Yeah.
But not all of them are.
Yeah, there's a brochure and it's on, if you have internet, usually it's on the internet, and even sometimes it's on the news.
Yeah.
They'll say what shelters are open, who's taking pets.
But here's the thing, you want to figure that out tonight or tomorrow, the next few days. You ought to know, you're going to know now, that's part of your plan. And then you can sometimes even contact the county about that to say, hey, I want to register for that particular. I don't know exactly about how the registration works, but I do know that most shelters do not take them.
Right.
But there are specific ones for
Yeah,
it.
can I just tell you which ones it is? Because I have 2 dogs. It's Gibbs High School, is pet friendly, and that's in St. Petersburg. Largo High School, pet friendly. Palm Harbor University High School. So they have these cards out there with this information.
Weren't you at Gibbs?
Yeah, Gibbs High School.
Did they not have any pets there?
Where I was at that shelter, they
Well,
found out it
last
was a
year,
dog
maybe they
and they
changed
threw
their
the
policy.
woman and the dog out.
Are you on our list? Do we come and get you, or do you self-evacuate?
Oh, I'm out of here before anybody else in this room.
Okay, good. All right. You can always call us, the fire department, and just ask, and we might have some information for you, but usually if they put out a list, it's pretty strong for this year, if they mention that.
And you can bring them to my house.
I just have a question. Is there someone we can call who will come to our house and say, this is what you need, this, and this? Is there somebody you can hire to do that? Either through the city?
It's kind of what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And the brochures and the things you're going to get. And Pinellas County, I should know this, but Pinellas County has one of the best websites in the country for that. So if you have access to the internet, Pinellas.org, or if it's her Pinellas Hurricane, what is it? Pinellas.gov. What is it?
StPete.org.
So,
Go to the Pinellas one. St. Pete probably is great, but I know for a fact
Pinellas one's very good.
Pinellas one is fantastic.
So if I come out to your house, I'm gonna tell you to secure your home and go to a shelter or a friend's house and say,
Right, but windows.
oh, so you want to secure your house, yeah. So you want to protect it as much as you can. And there's
Do not,
some brochures too.
do not put tape on your windows.
Yeah.
That is not stopping that tree from coming through your window, the branches.
And then know what kind of windows you have in the home too. You might have impact windows or. Impact windows, they will.
Yes.
They're tested to work, but there's never a guarantee.
Do you have
Unfortunately.
shutters now? Do you have plywood now? Yeah. My
So-
wife went to Home Depot, 7 o'clock in the morning, and with a Lexus 4-door, and got 3 pieces and tried to put them on the roof, and somebody was very kind and said, "What are you 2 ladies doing?" And said, "Where do you live?" and put it in the back of his truck and truck. So she was in that panic mode because I'm the one that wants shutters. I'm the weather guy. That's gonna be a problem at my house. And she didn't want to spend the money. And then by that time it was too late. So then she goes and does this. I'm at work, right? Our plan did not include shutters. And so she tried to do that. Exactly right. You shouldn't. It might happen, but you shouldn't. And you know, you could get it, just like she said, you can have it delivered this weekend. But you got a place to put it and cut it and that kind of stuff.
But if you have impact windows, those are pretty.
So what I really liked is when you said, you know, will someone come to my house and tell me what I need? No, that's your job beginning tonight, tomorrow. That is a big part of this. So part of this is the presentation that's being done and the question and answer now. An equally important part is not to pick this up and put it in the trash in 2 days. Read it cover to cover. This has so much information. It tells you step by step what to do, and equally important, what not to do. This is invaluable. I mean, I keep these at my house. I pass them out to others. They're in with all the things that we have in our hurricane kit. So not only is this extremely important, okay, I lost some of you now. Okay, not only is this extremely important, but the reason that the vendors took their time and were set up out there is a lot of labor and love went into these items that are sitting out here tonight. Pick them up. I mean, there's handouts that Justin and his team have worked on, some fantastic handouts that we didn't have last year. We're taking the lessons that we learned and we're trying to educate everybody and trying to get everybody better prepared for the future. But if you sit here for this hour here tonight and then you go home and you never look at this material, that's no good. It also is no good if you don't read this material until a week before a storm hits. Because guess what? Everybody's at the stores trying to prepare. We prepare now. I hope I'm being heard. We prepare now. And one of the most important things, and this wasn't original thought, but boy, am I holding on to this one. When you are told to evacuate and you decide to stay, that is not what you call a badge of courage. It's stupid.
Just write your
That was
Social Security
badass,
number
huh?
Yeah, you should put, you have a kit, you should have a container. And you're probably gonna need two, but you have a container. You don't buy all you need for your hurricane kit today. You get a little bit when you go. You go to the store and you get a BOGO, that's perfect. If it's a BOGO for like non-perishable, you get it for you and you take the free one and you stick it in your kit. And you do that over weeks and now your kit builds up. That should be in your kit, right? You should be looking at it, but also it should be there so that you know your flashlights are there, all your stuff. Your Social Security cards, your insurance, all this stuff. We say about all this for hurricanes. What if there's a fire? You need to grab that important stuff and go. That should be in a fire safe box, all in the same box, near the door, near somewhere where you know you can get it and go. Because the prep that you're doing for hurricanes is really prep that you can use for any natural disaster that happens, or man-made disaster with a fire or something like that.
I didn't want to interrupt, but Pinellas.gov will take you to it on the web, but Ready Pinellas app is
That's right.
That is great, just right on your phone.
I think I have
And
that.
the other thing that I learned recently that we're trying to educate people on is a pledge to evacuate. So don't wait to hear more on that, just go ahead and pledge to yourself even to evacuate, because when there's a mandatory evacuation, it's not a request or a suggestion, it's mandatory for your own safety.
Jacob, can we go to HDMI 2?
The problem is that you end up getting yourself in this problem, and then you call 911, and then he's got to risk his life and his friend's life to go out there and save you for you doing what you should have done in the first place. And these guys will do that.
It breaks my heart to have to cease operations that gets that bad. This last storm, we had rattlesnakes swimming past us, and people calling, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, it makes you go back and cry. You want to pull everybody you can. It's just, thank God everybody survived. So just please evacuate.
Back to the pet situation, if you know that you want to evacuate, what are the laws in regards to hotels being required to take your pets?
I don't actually know the laws of that. Most hotels, I think, are pretty accepting of it, but the shelters that offer the pet security, they will take it.
So I'm so glad that you asked that question, because I was going to say the same thing. The number of pets in Gulfport alone probably would fill up every shelter. Okay, there are not enough shelters that are accepting pets for anywhere near the need that's there. So again, talk about doing things in advance. You should be talking to your friends that are on higher ground today, tonight, tomorrow. You should be talking, looking where the storms are coming, and, if it's going to hit the other coast, you offer your friends on the other coast, you can bring your pets to me, and vice versa. You get that relationship going now. And how many times have we been told, you don't have to go hundreds of miles away. Many times we can go 10 miles up the road and we're going to be a lot safer, especially when it has to do with storm surge. And what we found is when people are evacuating, we evacuated for Milton with a great big German Shepherd. Not one person said that the dog wasn't welcome, and where we were, I think every person there had a dog. So if you're going to the shelter, you might be limited, but I think When they declare a state of emergency, I almost think the hotels cannot deny you entrance. Oh, somebody's shaking their head. Yeah, I think they have to
I think we
agree.
just ran a story on that. It's probably on WTSP.com. You could search it up in there. But I think this past summer, that was the case that they had to take the pets.
Yeah, DeSantis made it a requirement.
Oh, they just did something yesterday, right? They did two things yesterday.
Yeah, that's a different story, but
Okay.
during the hurricane, every year, if there's been a mandatory evacuation, he lists that all hotels have to accept pets.
Okay.
Basically a state of emergency.
Yeah.
But I'll also say that, like, you should know today or this weekend, where will you be going? What's your evacuation site? Not just plan, where do you go? Is it a friend's house? Hopefully that's easier, right? It's more comfortable. Family members, that's easier. And hopefully it's somewhere around town. You just go a mile inland, right? But if you don't have somebody and you need to go to a hotel and you're asking this question, which ones take it, that's what you figure out now. You go home tonight and you call the front desk. Like, hey, if I have to evacuate, you're close by, can I bring my pet here? Right? Those are what you're trying to figure out now, and then you write it down, like, oh yeah, the Holiday Inn on such and such said they'll take me and my pet. No, here's the thing. The hurricane's 200, 300 miles wide. We are all going to get some wind. We're all going to get some rain. You need to get away from that water. That is why you are evacuating. It's not for the wind, and it's not for the rain. Some folks, if you're in a mobile home, you're not supposed to be in that during a hurricane. What we say is run from the water, hide from the wind.
Have two routes. Have two routes in place.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
if it starts to go north, then you can go south. If it starts to go south, you can go north. So we
That's
have
right.
two routes in place.
You got friends in Miami, family in Miami, or you have people up in Jacksonville, or even further. To me, that's a long ways, but that might be what your case is. And my wife was going to go. I forgot where she was going. I didn't want them on the roads. You know what I mean? Like Orlando, I flew to Orlando on a good day. But imagine crazy anxiety people, and it's not their fault. They're worried, right? And it's packed, and it's not going anywhere. And then you run out of gas, and you can't get gas. You haven't been able to get gas for 2 days. Somebody's going to run out of gas on I-4, and you're going to be stuck. Not even your fault. And you just don't want to be there. Tens of miles, not 100 miles. Run from the water. Hide from the wind. I will be on Facebook for an hour, 2 hours doing live. Here's what we expect. And I'll talk about Gulfport. And then they'll be like, okay, well, what about 275? And I'm like, that's a mile from Gulfport. Like, this thing's 300 miles wide, right? Let's put it into perspective of what we're actually doing all this for. It's just the evacuations mainly are to get away from the water. I don't live in an evacuation zone. It's like a 4 or 5 or whatever. So I don't have that as a plan of mine. Gulfport does. Not all of it. Well,
that's where you find the friends that have.
Yeah. So then your house should be crowded.
We can go from a level A downtown to a non-evac zone, northeast section of the city. And just to piggyback on the evacuation zones and the storm surge models, evacuation zones are based upon the storm surge models. So if an A, B, and C evacuation is called, all you need to do is get to a D to be away from the water.
So the evacuation zones are based on elevation, right? So we calculate that elevation, and then the storm surge numbers you hear are above ground inundation, which means 5 to 8 foot of water above ground, right? And so then you can just do the math. How far in is 5 to 8 foot for the storm surge zones? And storm surge is not even everywhere. Right? So you could have somebody that's over here at 4 feet and somebody down there a little bit that's at 4 feet, but they're going to get a little bit more water than happens right here. All right, depends on lots of different things. But that's a good point, Justin, because they're separate, but they're about the same, right? And so that's what that calculation is done. And so weather, we do the inundation. How much wind is blowing over? How much water for how much time? That determines how much water gets pushed. And the shape of the coast, right? We do that and we come up with 5 to 8. They do the A, B, C zone. Pinellas.gov, the government, Pinellas County does that. They make that call. In fact, they make that call early. That's another thing I was really trying to stress is for people with kids, the shelters are schools. And so when you have a hurricane watch or a tropical storm watch, that's issued 48 hours in advance to when we expect to have hurricane force winds. You're not going to get any watch or warning really before that, okay? But in Helene's case, we knew we were getting a lot of water. At least we thought we were. 5 to 8 was the forecast. And not just in southern Pinellas County, all of Pinellas County. So now the county says, okay, weather is telling us that we're going to get 5 to 8 for the entire coastline. And the county goes, man, that's however many thousands of people. And that takes more time than just doing the south part of the county. So now they say, we don't even have a hurricane watch in effect. And they go, all right, everybody out, you got to go. 72 hours before the storm even gets here, they start making people leave because they know it takes time for people to get their stuff and to get going. And then as you're a parent with kids, the school's shut down. Now you're in a job that you have to go to work, there's no hurricane watch, but your kid's at home, there's no school, and things get frantic, right? They call it, there's all kinds of little things that are happening now. And now it's like, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I didn't know. And so the prep that you are learning to do right now and that you will do in the next couple of weeks, that's where that really pays off, because you just go right to your kit, you go right to your plan, and you start, okay, I guess it's time to go into the plan, turn on TV, find out what they say. You know, that's where the planning comes in. The timing is really hard, because that caught me. I'm like, man, they're already doing this, right? And in fact, we have 2 stations in Florida. We had a statewide meeting today, and that was my key thing for us, because we were working. I got to have my family all ready to go. I'm doing meetings for 5 to 7 days before the storm. We're all at work more than we are leading up to it. So we have to put all our stuff in plan early, and then these things happen sooner than you think. And the changes happen. Ian, right? Don't get mad if they evacuate you and then it goes down and it hits you. Thank God it didn't hit you. That's the way you have to look at it.
The 1 degree in the path was like 60 or 90 miles of a difference. And it was Fort Myers Beach and Pinellas County, essentially. That 1 degree shifted where the major impacts took place.
Southern Pinellas would have had a larger storm surge than what we saw in Helene.
And that story, Bobby, it brings me back to Tropical Storm Eta. I think it was Veterans Day a few years ago, where the storm just sat onto the west side of Cuba, sat there for maybe 12 plus hours. At that day before Veterans Day, we had at 2 o'clock, it's called a ROC, but it's a regional operations conference where each city gets in the same room to plan and to, everybody gets on the same page. Well, in that ROC, it was next day we're going level 2 monitoring, where then National Weather Service came out at the 4 o'clock advisory. The storm shifted 150 miles east, and now less than 12 hours, it's on us. And the messaging at that point was shelter in place, because it was a minimum 14 hours to get that first level of zone evacuated.
Yeah.
And that's where that, the changes. Give yourself plenty of time, because before the winds, before the rains, before the cars get on the interstate, it's best to have that plan in place and make those moves well before, and have, at least know what your plan is with you, your family, your pets. And we can't stress enough how much of a planning tool that the city has on the website. So if you go to mygulfport.us, on the home page where you see the casino's front picture, there's a button on that page that says Hurricane Center. The evacuation routes, the know your zones. In fact, this video from tonight's presentation will be up on that page tomorrow. The hurricane guide in digital format, and important television stations and weather radio stations to tune into. That Hurricane Center is on the city's website. Homepage, mygulfport.us, click on the Hurricane Center, and then we added a pledge to evacuate. Make that plan and pledge that when the storm is coming and there are evacuation orders present, that you will prepare to be essentially in a safe zone prior to the impacts felt here locally.
And we'll survive. Yeah. I don't normally say this in public, but my thing when I brief the team at the station, I start out with like, we're all gonna die. I got this big screen of the hurricane behind me. And I said, but it's not gonna be from this, right? We gotta work a lot. It's not gonna be comfortable, but we're gonna get through this. And it was when Irma came through, I don't want to say what position she had, but she was on air. She was crying off air because she was scared, and I'm just old, like, crotchety guy, right? Been doing this too long, so it's kind of like, get over it. But then I started realizing, what she was going through. And so people take it differently. And, they're not just like you. A lot of people think of it differently, and you have to understand that when you're trying to get a bunch of different people to be safe. We had people in Fort Myers I know that quit their job in the news business because before the hurricane got there because they were worried. So,
you didn't grow up in Florida. You
yeah,
don't know what all this is.
right.
This is so local.
Yeah, and that's what when we do this on TV. Our thing we did today was like we're doing all this streaming stuff too, and a lot of it's going to be 2 and 3 days before the storm, so the folks that are new will get to know this. And my job is to like say, hey, look, here comes this hurricane. It could be really bad, but don't worry about it. I'm trying to measure that, right? Because we don't want to, like what's happening now is forecast models go out 13, 14 days. And the GFS is we call it the American model, the GFS model. It likes, especially this time of the year, to show great big hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico or the Bahamas on days 12, 13, and 14. If you were having a birthday party 12 days from now and I told you it was going to rain, you'd be like, that's crap, we'll wait, we'll see. Right? But if you go online, somebody's saying, look at this hurricane, it's going to form 12 days in the Gulf of Mexico off its handle, and everybody shares it, right? That makes me mad because that gets everybody excited. I don't let my team talk about that, right? We have certain windows where we can start talking about things because especially after last year, there's no sense in getting everybody upset because there's a lot of PTSD. I joke about it, but it is. There's a lot of people that, went through a lot last year. And for me to even go up there and say, hey, we think we're going to have 17 to 20 named storms this year, they don't want to hear that. And I don't blame them. But we do have to be prepared. And so for the internet stuff that's going on, it's really good to have, it doesn't have to be me, but if it's me, it's great. But pick somebody or pick a couple of us that you see on TV or online that you trust. And you can go and get different, our perspectives are really pretty close. I think you'll find that out. But if you find somebody that's showing this crap, that just tells you they're just trying to get clicks. And then some of the stuff I see, they're wrong too. What they're saying is wrong. And because they're kind of startups and they're new and they're trying, I'm not to bash them, but I'm just saying I don't want that bleeding over into people trying to make life decisions on it.
Mr. Deskins did the live weather report today from Pavilion 6 on Gulfport Beach at 5 p.m. today. As a boating community, Bobby, what's a good takeaway that the boaters could do ahead of time? Last Thursday, the city went with the Gulfport Police Marine Patrol unit and delivered 65 placards. That was 15 more than last year to boaters on the bay on how to be prepared, what to expect, take safe harbor, don't ride the storm out, 1.5 mile fetch, storm out of the south, it just builds up. And it's unforgiving, like a domino effect.
It's hard. If you can get the boat out, that's obviously the best thing to do is to get it out in the water. And a lot of people can't do that. And then the second thing, number one, get it out. Number two, don't stay on it. You can do as much as you can to tie it down. You can tie it all you want, but when that piling goes, when the whole dock goes, your boat is tied to that. You did a great job tying it up, but it's gone. So it's just,
And while we're in the calm,
this area does actually fairly well, to be honest with you. We've had a lot of boats. We had a lot of boats get washed up. A lot of them did well out there.
And just like if a boat comes onto the beach, like a car on the highway, the police department, FWC, they sticker it, has a certain amount of time to move. If it doesn't, it then is moved. And if we're talking thousands of dollars to do that, and ahead of storm season, it's best like when someone calls their insurance company, like Howard Coons was talking about today, call the insurance company, find out what the policy covers. As a boater, do the same. Find out what the insurance covers when the boat comes ashore on land, because we've experienced it, and when the city essentially has to step in, it's a pretty hefty price to remove the vessel off the beach. But just like when someone on land prepares their homes, boaters should do the same. Get the extra lines, get the extra anchor, have that plan to move it to a safe harbor. So
Get your valuables off of it. You almost have to assume it ain't gonna be there. Hopefully it is.
can we give Mr. Deskins a round of applause? He's the chief Deputy Chief James Lund, that's the planner, Mark Whippen, Public Works Superintendent. Thank you, Mayor Love, Vice Mayor Zanos, Councilmember Shaw. On behalf of the City of Gulfport, we'll have the video up. Please visit the Hurricane Center at mygulfport.us. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Be afraid to reach out. Okay?